Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome. Welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. Right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on wonderful AM and FM radio stations across our great state of Michigan. So glad to have you along with us as we continue to move into this new year, 2026, as we're about roughly halfway through the month of January now. Winter is... I got spring fever. Can I come right out and say it? I have spring fever. And it's too early to have spring fever. I'm setting myself up for disappointment. You know, when we had that January thaw here last week or a week and a half ago where it got pretty warm, and I took advantage of that. The snow melted. I got out and did some things around the yard that I hadn't been able to because it was frozen and covered with snow. Well, now it's moving back the other direction. And it's too early to have spring fever. I think I need to force myself back into wintertime outdoor activities, the ones that I used to enjoy when I was younger. You know, rabbit hunting or skiing or ice fishing. If I had those activities that I was passionate about and addicted to, I think it would make the wintertime fly faster. But that's not where I find myself. So I'm jonesing, okay? I'm jonesing for springtime, but I just need to be patient and sit back and wait. I want to start this show right out with a couple of corrections, things that I misspoke about in last week's show. The first one was regarding the Ask Avery segment when we asked the question of whether, you know, if you're tracking a deer and then you then find that deer, but he's still with us, meaning he's not dead yet, to be honest, can you legally shoot that deer after dark? And I referred to WCO with some numbers, and I called it the Wildlife Commission Order. Well, it's not. It's a Wildlife Conservation Order. Maybe a minor point, but it was wrong. I said the wrong thing, and so let me correct that. It's not a Wildlife Commission Order. It is a Wildlife Conservation Order. And the answer to that is if you come up to a deer that you've been tracking, you can then reload your weapon, whether it's a gun or a bow, depending on the season, and you can finish that animal off legally. Now, of course, we're talking Michigan, but this is a Michigan show. When I post such comments online, I have to be very careful and very specific because people, you know, they follow me on social media outside of Michigan. They say, oh, no, that's not true. Well, I'm talking about Michigan. Hey, listen, I'm a Michigan guy. I'm a Michigan fanboy. I make no apologies for it. I love this state. I've spent my career here. I will finish my career here. I've lived my entire life here. I've done a fair amount of traveling earlier in my career, enjoyed it, but always looked forward to coming back home to Michigan. So when I talk about things on this radio show and the podcast version of, unless I tell you otherwise, they are Michigan specific. The other mistake that I made, and I didn't go back to listen to the show to verify this, but my recollection is, in my mind, I said this. We were talking about shed antlers and the search for shed whitetail antlers. And I made the distinction, being kind of a smart aleck, between horns and antlers. Antlers drop off every year, horns don't. And I mentioned, whitetails drop their antlers, elk drop their antlers, moose drop their antlers. And I said, sheep don't drop their horns. And I think I said antelope, pronghorns. I think I said pronghorns don't drop their horns. But you know what? They do. So again, I made a mistake. I misspoke. And I want to come back and address that right now. So so I made 2 mistakes last week. I probably made 200, but I'm aware of 2. So there you go. Also, going back to making comments online, I made a post last week, and I said that I said I almost feel like, and I'm not a biologist. Again, I'm not a biologist. I don't pretend to be. I'm just a guy with a microphone and sometimes a big mouth. I said I almost feel like if my local deer herd had to be affected by disease, and I would prefer that it doesn't, at first blush, I would almost prefer that I had CWD in the local deer herd as opposed to EHD, chronic wasting disease as opposed to EHD. And then I backed off. I said, you know what? I can't say that, but I said it is an interesting discussion, isn't it? Maybe I should put out some kind of an online poll. Obviously, we would all prefer that our local deer herd does not get hit by any kind of disease, but if it had to get hit by disease, would you want it to be EHD or CWD? The thing about EHD is it comes in hard and fast, and it's really disruptive to a local deer herd and can kill a lot of animals quickly. Chronic wasting disease, we don't know yet, do we? I mean, the experts, the biologists, the DNR biologists will say, long term, it could be very, very bad. But I just haven't seen that yet. So I'm thinking, boy, if I had chronic wasting disease in the local deer herd, at least I would have a healthy deer herd for the foreseeable future, where if EHD comes in, it can wipe out all your bucks in a matter of a couple of weeks. Again, I don't want either one of them, but isn't that an interesting discussion? The whole CWD thing is very interesting because there are a significant percentage of deer biologists, non-state DNR deer biologists, deer hunters, and deer farmers who say chronic wasting disease is not the end of the world as we had been told earlier by a lot of state DNR biologists. And I've had this discussion with top tier Michigan DNR wildlife biologists and expressed that concern. And they say, no, we stand by this. CWD is a very big concern. And we don't want to find out how bad it can be. So I don't know. It's an interesting discussion. Does talking about it change anything? Probably not. Oh, and the thing about EHD, if you think your area is going to be susceptible to EHD, there are products out there, including one, AquaShield from Killer Food Plots, Michigan-based Killer Food Plots, where if you get into a dry summer, could be drought, you can treat your water holes and ponds with AquaShield and do a pretty good job of, I don't know about preventing EHD, but certainly mitigating it. What else? I talked about winter continuing. Interesting, the Saginaw River where I live, there was ice on the river, and there were people out there ice fishing. I had dinner in Bay City the other night next to the river, looking at the river, and it's wide open. So I don't know what is this winter going to end up bringing. I don't know. So in the meantime, last week I went down to the boat show at the Suburban Collection Showplace, the Ultimate Fishing Show in Detroit. Saw some good friends. Shot some video with Mr. AnglerQuest, Brad Dupuis. I haven't posted that yet as of the time we are recording the show, but by the time you hear the show this weekend, it will probably be out there, including a walkthrough of the new AnglerQuest, QUEST, family fish model, the Family Fish RA. So it's a family fish with a radar arch. It seems like it might be the best of all worlds, and I don't know, maybe a boat I might be interested in running as well. Okay, they will officially announce, they being the Michigan DNR, specifically Eric Hilliard of the Michigan DNR. I think the date is the 24th. They are going to announce the winners of the Pure Michigan Hunt. I won. I'm one of the 3 winners of the Pure Michigan Hunt for 2026. Now, they haven't officially notified me of that. And they haven't even officially drawn those winners. But I can feel it in my heart of hearts that I won the Pure Michigan Hunt this year. Now, when they make that official, I will take the elk tag, and I will take the bear tag, and everything else I think I'll donate to charity organizations around the state that they can auction off or use for fundraisers or whatever. So, congratulations to me, Mike Avery. I did win the Pure Michigan Hunt this year. Again, they haven't officially notified me. They haven't even drawn it yet. Okay, but I won. I can feel it. I won the Pure Michigan Hunt. They draw 3 winners. I hope that you are one of the other 2. Now, here's the kicker. I'm saying this with all bravado, but if something happens where I did win the Pure Michigan Hunt, people would come out of the woodwork. Avery, it was fixed. But you know what? I would deal with all that criticism, and I would take my winnings for winning the Pure Michigan Hunt. Coming up on this week's show after the break, DNR wildlife biologist Adam Bump talks about the upcoming Michigan turkey season, including some changes. In our second hour, outdoor writer and fishing guide Dave Rose checks in. Then fisheries biologist Jeff Jolley on the new reef that they've put in Saginaw Bay, the Inner Bay, and the DNR, or the Saginaw Bay fishery in general. And in our third hour, predator hunting with Chris Kreiner. All that plus wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar and more coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. And north of the bridge in Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination, your fall waterfowl hunting destination, your wintertime ice fishing destination. Oh, great facilities, beautiful location, wonderful people. I don't know what more you can ask for. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Also, by the way, your Mid-Michigan Angler Quest, QUEST, Angler Quest headquarters. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. And I love Linwood Beach because I love Saginaw Bay and I love to fish for walleye. My top 3 things in the outdoors: bear hunting, walleye fishing, and turkey hunting. I love springtime turkey hunting. It's an absolute addiction for me. And last year, I was able to get my grandson Trent out for his first bird, and I think I've got him addicted to it as well. So needless to say, we are already looking forward to the upcoming springtime Michigan turkey season. Adam Bump is a wildlife biologist with the Michigan DNR, and the turkey season, are under his purview, his authority, his direction. Now, I realize, look, he can't control all the decisions, right? He's got the department, he's got the NRC, yada, yada. But Adam works as closely with the Michigan turkey hunting season as anybody in our state, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Adam, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, it's always a pleasure to talk with you, especially when we're talking turkey hunting. But you and I have talked in the past, Adam, about different species. And before we talk about turkey, I want to help me figure this out here. When a person goes to school, college, to become a wildlife biologist, are you a wildlife biologist, or do you specialize in a certain species as you're going through your training and through your education? How does that work?
It can really depend. Your initial education is going to be general and give you a big background in wildlife management and wildlife conservation practices, give you kind of a firm footing on being just a biologist in general. Then if you go on for your master's degree, you might do a project that's focused, but it doesn't often mean that you have to go follow that path. So you can broaden it and look at different things. A good biologist is able to adapt to different species. You can learn about it a little bit, apply all the things that you know to a different suite of species. So my career has done that path where I really have used my background and experience in policy and regulations and engagement with stakeholders to kind of dabble in different groups of species, which I found to be fun because it gives me a chance to learn more about them and more about the people that are interested in pursuing them and that kind of thing. So that's kind of the way my career path has gone.
And I would think too, if you get to work with different species along the journey, it just makes the whole process more fun in some ways.
Yeah, that's what I found. It's just really interesting to see how different each program or species can be, but yet how much of the biology and how you look at regulations can be similar. And you might learn different things from looking at those different programs and how you might be able to apply some of that to other programs.
I look at the Michigan turkey program as a great conservation success story because when I was a kid growing up in West Michigan, there were no birds around. We didn't have turkeys. There was no turkey hunting. I followed the progress through letting, years ago, release of birds in Fairview and Mayo, and now we've got birds all across the state. And I understand that our Michigan turkey hunting program, if you look at it statistically, is one of the most successful programs in the country.
Yeah, we've done really well from, the successful reintroductions that started in the 50s until now. It's just been a great trajectory, and our program now is great success rates. We're getting over in the mid 40% success rates, lots of people participating. I think you're right. Michigan has a great spring turkey program.
January, if I remember right, Adam, January is the time to apply if you're going to apply for one of the limited quota areas.
That's correct.
And there are some changes in store for us as turkey hunters this year, though.
There is. There's actually quite a few changes. So it's great that we can talk now to give people an opportunity to know that they probably should be checking out our regulations to see what the changes are and try to make sure that they're applying for what they'd like. We really tackled the whole picture this year. We decided it would be great to try to get an idea of what turkey hunters are looking for, take a deep dive in the regulations. They've been added to and tinkered with here and there for years, but no major overhaul. So we did some surveys looking at what people were interested in, and we made some big changes to try to, I think, move the turkey program towards something that turkey hunters hopefully will appreciate.
So what are we looking at, Adam?
So the major changes that we made is kind of simplifying and streamlining regulations to make it a little easier to understand, a little easier to figure out what hunt unit you might want. And the goal there was to provide more opportunity, more flexibility for hunters, but not to the point that we're being too liberal and we think we might negatively impact populations. So we went and we reduced our turkey management units from 14 to 3.
Wow.
So that we also standardized the seasons, so the season dates are more standardized. And what that was able to do for us was to reduce the number of hunt choices from, I think last year we had about 28. This year we have 6. So the net result for hunters, little easier to figure out where you might want to go, but also you're going to have more area to hunt, especially for public land hunters, and more opportunities. See, some seasons would be a little bit longer depending on what your choices are, and it's going to just we're hoping give people that feeling they have more time to find time to hunt and more places to check out and more flexibility to move around.
So in general, what are the 3 geographic areas? Southern lower, northern lower, and UP?
That's right. Yep. The UP has been its own unit for a while, so the UP remained essentially unchanged, still has its 6-week season, still have a drawing. The unit didn't change at all. Then the northern lower basically, if people, most turkey hunters are familiar with our ZZ turkey line, that's the boundary between the northern lower and the southern lower. So the northern lower is all one unit. It's called NN, and there'll be one early season drawing for the early season, a 2-week early season to give hunters an opportunity there. And then the remaining 4 weeks of the season, the 234 license will allow hunters to hunt public land in NN. So there isn't a second drawing because we have that 234 hunt opportunity. And then the ZZ line will be used for our most popular license, which is the 301 hunt, the private land 6-week hunt in ZZ. That remains the same, except we made that license unlimited, so you will not have to apply for it anymore. And then we created 2 hunt periods for the entirety of ZZ that will be good for those licenses. Will be a drawing. The first one will be 2-week season. The second will be a 4-week season, and it would allow you to hunt any public and private land in the entirety of the ZZ zone.
All right, you lost me at ZZ because that's my hunt. That's my go-to, right?
Okay.
Southern Michigan
Yep.
private lands, basically a 6-week hunt in the past. That's why I love it. I can be out there when the season starts, and I can hunt all the way through May. Has that changed? Is there no longer a 6-week ZZ hunt?
Nope, still a ZZ.
Okay.
6-week hunt. That's the hunt number 301. So we did not change that one at all, other than we no longer have a quota there, so there's no risk of it running out. You don't have to worry about trying to apply. You'll be able to buy that hunt over the counter. What we did is try to impact the general license units, so the units that are meant to distribute hunters across the state for the public, more of the public land opportunity. So we removed all of those. So you don't have your ZA, ZB, ZC, ZF, the smaller units that split up the public land hunting opportunities. Instead, those seasons, which had different compositions, some might be 1-week or 2-week seasons or just kind of scattered out. We had multiple choices for each one of those. We reduced the choices down to 2, a 2-week season and a 4-week season, and you can hunt all of the land in the ZZ zone for public or private land with those quota hunts.
Gotcha.
So three choices, 3 ZZ choices that exist there. 2 are public land quota hunts, and the other is that 6-week private land guaranteed license.
I'll tell you, when you came up with that 6-week private land tag years ago, it was like that was the holy grail for me because it changed the way I looked at turkey hunting. And no longer was it just a 1-week season. It turned it into an entire springtime adventure if I wanted to make it look like that.
Yeah, and I think that's where some of these changes are moving towards. The 234 hunt is it's a 4-week season that's public and private land everywhere in the state except not public land in the ZZ zone. And we retained that license the same. There was no changes to the 234. And I think those 4-week seasons are close to what you're describing with the 301 hunt. And it gives people time to get out there, to be flexible with the weather, with what kind of behavior turkey's having. And so that's kind of what we were trying to move towards with some of these general licenses for public land, primarily for public land hunters. Give them more room to move around, more places to try out. If they want to take that later season, they get a full month to be able to do it. But we wanted to retain some quality there, so we did retain the quotas, and we do still have that shorter 2-week period to allow people that want that early opportunity to be able to get out there but still have some quality hunting.
We're talking with DNR wildlife biologist Adam Bump. The website for the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. January is the time to apply for the limited quota hunts if you need to do that. But as Adam just described, like for ZZ, I'm not even going to have to apply for it anymore. I know I'm going to be able to get it. And if you're in southern Michigan and have access to private land, that's a good tag. We'll take a break. More with Adam coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena, WZTK 105.7 FM in Alpena. You can hear us in, let's go to St. Joe, WSJM 94.9 FM. And let's go north of the bridge. Let's go to Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. Newberry, where I hope to be bear hunting this fall with the bear whisperer, Johnny Bowler. But that's only a hope, right? I hope to get a third season tag that I can hunt with Johnny. My other love in the outdoors, much more than deer hunting, is turkey hunting. But now I'm finding out there's no concern that I won't get a tag for turkey season this year, because I will be able to buy one over the counter. ZZ, Southern Michigan Private Land 6-week hunt. How cool is that? Now, I haven't really worried about that quota running out the past few years anyway, but now there's no quota at all. We're talking with DNR wildlife biologist Adam Bump about the upcoming turkey season. Adam, I think I'm liking these season changes. Anything to simplify the system and make it easier for hunters to get out there and enjoy the sport. I mean, it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping too, is that people feel that way. You know, I think there'll be a little bit of a warming up period maybe for the southern Michigan areas where they're used to having those very small units, and we'll see how people shuffle around. But most turkey hunters are, probably going to stick to their home locations where they're most familiar and maybe dabble out and about a little bit. But that will be the biggest change, I think, for most, is having that added flexibility. But when we're looking at some of the surveys that we did, that seems to be something that people are really looking for. And I think those guaranteed hunts, the new ZZ quota removal, and then our long-term 234 hunt that has been unlimited over the counter for a number of years, give people a great chance to get out there without having to worry about trying to apply for drawing.
I heard that there's a change in tags this year as well.
We changed license quotas. So license quotas, since we merged those units, we had to make new quotas for the bigger units. So we did make those changes. We have, I think this will be the second spring that we've had e-harvest tags available. So you now have the option of going to a licensed agent, buying a paper tag over the counter at anywhere that sells licenses, going onto the DNR website and purchasing a paper license that would be mailed to you. Or if you go through our Hunt Fish app, you can buy a e-kill tag, which allows you to have it on your phone. You buy it and you have it immediately, and then you use that and can validate that electronically. So we have those three options for turkey hunting.
I didn't realize that was out there last year, the e-tag option.
I can't remember. We started it, I want to say that it was 2 falls ago, but I could be mistaken. This fall might have been the first e-harvest tag year, but definitely will be available this spring. That is definitely an option.
So you wouldn't have a tag to put on a bird. How would you tag a bird then?
So you would go into the Hunt Fish app, and it will give you an option to validate, and you just have to click that button, follow the prompts. It's really only asking you the same information that you would have notched in your tag. And when you click on it, it will give you a validation number that shows that you've registered it, and you'll need to be able to present that and show it to a conservation officer if necessary. It kind of leads me to one of the other big changes that we made that I haven't mentioned yet, and that's that we are implementing harvest reporting this spring for turkey hunting. So you'll now be required to do a harvest report, and that if you have an e-kill tag, validating the license is not doing the harvest report. But when you're done, it will ask you, do you want to move on to the harvest report? And you'll be able to go on and do that. So you'll always have on your phone that validation number, if you used an e-kill tag, that you'd be able to show that you're valid and have it. And you're able to validate your e-kill tag whether you have an internet connection or not. Harvest reporting does require an internet connection.
So I think this was a pilot program last year, so I think the e-tags are new this year. So I don't necessarily have to have a physical tag on my bird, but if a game warden stops me, I have to show him my phone that I have tagged this bird electronically. Is that basically accurate?
Yep.
And then the mandatory reporting, though, is one step beyond that.
Right, and that's something that's new, just approved by the Natural Resource Commission this November for implementation this fall. So since most of our hunters in Michigan, regardless of species, also hunt deer, a lot of people are going to be familiar with it. It's the same system as we use for deer harvest reporting. The process is the same. We try to make everything as close to the same as we could. So you would need to go online onto the DNR website or through the Hunt Fish app, and then you'll be able to select harvest reporting for a specific license.
Got it. Hang tight, Adam. I got to take a break. I don't mean to cut you off, but I got to take a break. We'll come back and finish up the hour with Adam Bump. He's a DNR wildlife biologist. We're talking about the upcoming Michigan turkey season and some changes that we as hunters will be taking a look at. Doesn't sound like a real big deal, but, you know, people are going to gripe. People gripe about everything. Thank you so much for joining us this week here on the Outdoor Magazine radio show. You can hear the show on stations across the state, including, if you live in the Cairo area, 2 stations, WKYO, which is 1360 AM, and WIDL, 92.1 FM. Or if you live in, let's say, Sandusky, out in the Thumb, you can hear us on WMIC, 660 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Michigan-based family-owned Killer Food Plots. Now, I know you're not putting in food plots right now. You're probably not even hunting over your food plots right now. But you're thinking about how your food plots performed and how that affected your past hunting season. Get in touch with Rich Krizan at Killer Food Plots. The website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. He can help you out. He's going to help us out on our lease property this year to hopefully get some better results and attract and hold more deer onto the lease property. It's killerfoodplots.com. Now, food plots are not just for deer hunting. They're also wonderful for all wildlife, including turkeys. It is common to see turkeys come through food plots in display and strut and feed. And we're talking turkey right now with DNR wildlife biologist Adam Bump. Adam, I appreciate you joining us this week. The Michigan Turkey Program, as I said originally, or a couple segments ago, is pretty much nothing but good news. However, turkey numbers do seem to be down in some areas here in Michigan, and it's a problem, I think, across the country. How much concern is there from a management perspective when you look at what appears to be a trend? Is it a concern?
We've been trying to monitor the population really closely. You know, you've seen changes in most of the U.S. with concerns about declines. Most of Michigan data is suggesting stable populations. But we've been working on enhancing an existing model and getting some better information. We're going to be implementing a research project to get some information on hen survival, nest survival, to look at production and see if there's any problems there, try to enhance our modeling efforts so that we can keep a track on it. But the data we have right now says, you know, as a whole, in the big picture, the population is doing pretty well. Like you said, doesn't mean there aren't pockets here or there that might be declining, but on a whole, we think we're okay, which is one of the reasons why we felt we were okay with some liberalization of the regulations as long as we didn't take it too far. But anytime you make changes like that, we're going to be wanting to monitor that population and make sure there weren't any unintended impacts.
Yeah, anecdotally, I'm seeing fewer birds, and a lot of my buddies are as well, but I realize we're looking at it from a pretty small perspective, our part of the state and our areas that we hunt. So I get that. One thing that I have heard Michigan turkey hunters ask for the last several years is opening up the season, in particular the spring season, to shooting multiple birds, more than one bird. Was that an option? Is that something you folks have taken a look at?
We did review that during this last regulation cycle, and what we found through the survey we did with the MSU was that there's some interest in the two-bird sort of option or multiple bird, but the majority of hunters that responded are satisfied with the one-bird limit, and they seem to have greater interest in this expanded flexibility and more opportunity. And so because you have that trying to balance remaining a little bit conservative because of the population, we want to make sure we're not going to impact the population, we thought that we'd move towards these more expansive units, a little bit more opportunity in terms of license of season lengths and those types of things, and we elected not to move forward with the two-bird limit. It's not universally supported. The Michigan chapter of the National Wild Turkey Federation didn't support a two-bird limit right now, but it's one of those ideas that we remain open to. We just want to review it and make sure that if we were to do something like that, it was sustainable.
How much do you, this is an interesting concept, how much do you take into account what your stakeholders suggest? Because you guys in Lansing, I mean, in theory, you are the experts.
What we do is, what I try to do anyway, is look at what are the opportunities that are being asked for, and can we provide those in a way that doesn't negatively impact the population, and can we balance that with competing views? So a lot of times you'll have this segment of the stakeholder groups or individuals want it and the other side doesn't. So I tend to select regulation changes for review based on what the interest is, and then make sure we could do it in an appropriate way, putting the population concerns first.
Adam, I appreciate your time. I'll be curious to see what the reaction is to the changes for this spring, because we've had this discussion before. Whenever you make changes, even if you're making them for what you believe are the best interest of your stakeholders, i.e. Michigan turkey hunters, people don't like change. we're creatures of habit.
That is very true. I think you're right.
All right, Adam, appreciate your time. Michigan.gov/DNR is the website for the Michigan DNR. I will be using the e-tag this spring. I'm curious to see how it'll work. I mean, it seems like it's pretty seamless, pretty easy, and I'm all about easy, so I will be using that for this spring. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our second hour, we're going to change our focus a little bit and talk some fishing. First with Dave Rose, who is an outdoor writer and a fishing guide, maybe a former fishing guide. He might still be guiding. And then a fisheries biologist, Jeff Jolley. I want to talk about Saginaw Bay and that new reef that's out there very close to my honey hole.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. I was thinking 2026. This is my 45th year in broadcasting. Things have changed a lot for me and in the world in general, right? Since I was a kid coming up as a news reporter, and then the TV show, and then now radio and social media. The radio show is the heart and soul of what I'm doing these days, and I do think, and I'll tell you this every week, I think the best way to listen to the show, if you can, is on your local radio station, your local AM or FM station. If you can't, if your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state, not covered by the broadcast signal, isn't it nice to know that there's a podcast version of this show available? Now, the podcast is the same content as the radio show, but it's made available to you after the broadcast stations air the show. And you have to find it in a different way. Where do you find it? You find it online. You find it on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I put it on my Facebook page. And it's on all of the usual podcast outlets. Amazon, Audible, Twitter, now called X, LinkedIn, Apple Music, Google Play, iHeartRadio, yada, 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 Deezer, Odyssey, YouTube. All over the place. Wherever you get your podcasts from, you can get the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. And I do like podcasting. I think podcasting is a wonderful way to communicate these days. I think podcasting is the easiest form of communication I've ever seen. Because you don't need, like when I was, starting out, I needed a TV studio, I needed a director and a technical director and an audio person and a camera operator and a live truck. Not anymore. You can literally produce a podcast using the phone that's in your pocket or in front of you right now. I do podcasts every month for some of my advertising partners, including Offshore Tackle. And last week we featured, this month's podcast is Lance Valentine. I also do Angler Quest Pontoons and Killer Food Plots. And when we're done here in the studio recording this week's radio show, we will record this month's Killer Food Plots podcast with Rich Krizan. Throughout this journey that I've been on, though, I have had the privilege of meeting with and interacting with and becoming friends with so many interesting people. Last week, I saw one of those people. His name is Dave Rose. I saw him at the Ultimate Fishing Show in Detroit, and Dave's like my hero. Dave walks around these show span shows, and he's like, he runs the place. People come up to him, they're asking him questions. He's pointing people different directions, and he's giving directions, and he does all the announcing at the shows. It's like the perfect gig. And Dave and I decided it was a really good time to get him back here on the radio show as well, and he has graciously agreed to join me. Dave Rose, welcome, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good, better than I deserve. I've heard that on another radio podcast, but it's very true.
And congrats on this gig with Showspan. You've had this for several years now.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody, which is what I do at the shows, and then I'm like, man, I wish I had written down the dates that I started doing certain things for the shows. And I know it was back in 1997 when I was getting into guiding full-time and getting into my outdoor writing gig full-time that I started doing the shows as a vendor, promoting my guide service, doing whatever, doing seminars on different types of fishing. And it has worked oh my goodness, longer than I think, at least, probably more than 20 years now.
Wow.
I work for the three largest outdoor shows in Michigan. They hand me a microphone, and off I go.
Nothing more dangerous than a guy with a microphone. I know that feeling.
Yeah. So a quick side note here that's kind of funny. So I've still got some report cards from when I was, quite young. And in my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Beatty, she said, and she wrote this on the report card, and I still have this report card. Of course, my mother gave it to me. She said, David would do much better in class if he would just shut up. And I kid you not, that's why it's this shut up on there. So, we're talking 1970, whatever, in the late 70s when this happened, and teachers could tell you to shut up, right? So, yeah, and look at me now, Mrs. Beatty. You know,
Yeah,
this is what I do
yeah.
for a living.
Well, and what about, okay, so you mentioned outdoor writing and you mentioned guiding. What's the status of those two parts of your life? Are you still doing both of those?
Not both. So I have 4 major joint replacements now. Just a year and a half ago, I had 3 of them replaced, both knees, 1 hip. 12 years ago, I had the other hip. You know, everything you have to do in guiding isn't just about sitting in a boat and taking people fishing. I mean, you got prep and you got to climb in and out of the boat and you got launching and this and that and everything like that. You know, and it's a 15-hour day for a guide trip. It really is. And my joints and my muscles around those new fake joints say, you know what? I think you're done with this. So I had to take a hiatus, get recovered, which I'm recovering well. I mean, when you do 3 major joint replacements in a 6.5-month period, there's a lot of recovery time.
Yeah, you're like the $6 million man now.
Yeah, you know, when they call me that, the $6 million man, I mean, that's about what insurance will have paid out when it's all said and done. I mean, seriously, I mean, it's amazing, you know, how much all this stuff costs. And but the long story short is I'm getting back into writing. I really had to take time for myself. I had to take time to get recovered. I had to take, yada, yada, yada. And so right now, as of 2026, are we in 2026? Yeah, I'll make sure I have that right because I keep saying last year. I love getting out in the field, finding that story, taking photographs, and I hate to say sitting down in front of a computer and putting something out there that the public hopefully will read and maybe get something out of, and that's very rewarding. Boy, anybody that wants to get into writing, especially into the outdoors, it's a tough one. And I'm not trying to scare anybody away and blah, blah, blah. You're not taking my business. You're not doing this. It's a way of life. It is not, you're not going to be, how do you make $1 million as an outdoor writer? Well, you start with $2 million. Yep. And then when you're done, you got $1 million left.
Yep.
And as you know, this is a tough racket, and there's a few of us that have been blessed enough to be able to do it.
Yes, and I am consciously aware of that on a daily basis. What a great ride I've had, and how fortunate and blessed I am to be able to do something that I love so much. But I do want to go back to this, and it's kind of a cliche, but modern medicine. I mean, when you my dad and my granddad especially, when they were my age, they were in rough shape because the joint replacement thing wasn't an option, and our whole family is get racked with arthritis. So to be able to have joint replacements that can keep you back in the outdoors and upright is really pretty cool.
Oh, it's very cool. I mean, I'm able to go to, I'm getting strong enough where I'm probably this summer, I'll be able to wade the rivers because there's a lot of pressure, the current and all that kind of stuff. It takes a lot of muscle work. And when, you get your muscles cut and stretched and this and that and everything else, it takes time to recover. But had this not been an option, I'd literally be in a wheelchair.
Sure.
I'm 58 now. At age 45 is when I got my first hip replacement. I mean, I couldn't walk. I could not get in my boat at age 45. And then, modern medicine allowed me to do that. And then, of course, now with these other ones, modern medicine is allowing me to get back into doing what I love.
And that is outdoor writing. And I want to follow up on that because that has changed so much as well. When I first joined the Michigan Outdoor Writers Association back in early 90s or whatever it was, that group looked much different than it does today because outdoor communication and the forms of communication and the way people want to consume content, man, it's a different world.
Oh, it's a completely different world. Obviously, the world of the internet has changed all that, especially with social media. There's a lot of great photographers, a lot of great writers out there, and, they put their stuff out there. And when I say put their stuff out there, they're not getting paid for it, a good majority of these people. And boy, does that change because, there was a handful of people that could take really good photographs, and it took a lot of money to take those photographs. We're talking, buying slide film and then getting it developed and then having it's a $5,000 camera. I was a member also of the Outdoor Writers Association of America, OWAA, and I remember in the year 2000 taking a seminar class, and they were talking about this new thing called a digital camera.
Hang tight, Dave. Hang tight. I got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Dave Rose. He's an old guy, right? He's been around forever. He's had everything replaced. He's seen the industry change, but he's still out there, and he's still viable, and he's still kicking, and I appreciate that, and I want to talk more with him after the break. You can find Dave on Facebook. Do a search for David A. Rose. David A. Rose on Facebook. You'll find the guy that I'm talking to right now. More coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in, let's go to Tawas, WIOS, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And let's go north of the bridge, way north. Let's go to Iron Mountain, WMIQ, 1450 AM. This segment, speaking of north of the bridge, this segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by... What is that? What is that noise? Avery, I've heard that sound before. What is it? That's the sound of my Rapid River knife locking back open. I just pulled it out of my pocket. It's there all the time. This one happens to be the Mike Avery signature knife. Proceeds from this knife go to Outdoor Driven, a group formed to get first responders and vets on outdoor adventures to help them deal with the stress that they've accumulated over the years as they help and protect us as a general population. I'm a big fan of Rapid River Knives. I would encourage you to go to the website rapidriverknifeworks.com or stop by their showroom on US 2 just east of Rapid River and check it out. The website rapidriverknifeworks.com. That's rapidriverknifeworks.com. Right now, talking with a guy who's been a fixture in the outdoor business here in Michigan for many, many years. His name is Dave Rose. Dave, I want to talk a little bit more about the business of outdoor writing before we talk about fishing. How would somebody get started as an outdoor writer these days? Because there's not Field and Stream to write for. There's not Outdoor Life to write for. So what do you do?
I mean, excuse me. There are those publications, but they're internet, which is not a bad thing. I mean, that's fine. As long as they pay you, right? Doesn't matter if it's print or whatever.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you actually made more money physically back in the 1970s than you did nowadays for an article, which is okay. That's just the way it is. So how does somebody get into the outdoor writing field? Well, number one, you got to practice writing. I mean, that's what I had to do. I got into this. I was a terrible writer. Oh my goodness. I mean, when I say in junior high I got E's in English, I'm not kidding you. So this isn't something I went to college for, or I did get journalism merit badge in Boy Scouts, but and which was great, right? That was my schooling,
right?
It is you got to be a good writer. When I say good, it's not necessarily being able to put words onto paper, but knowing punctuation, and that's a hard one these days because with the internet and social media and all that kind of stuff, we like to LOL, we like to all these abbreviations, all this kind of stuff, but know where a period go, know what a semicolon is and when to use it, and that kind of thing. And then if you just write as you think, I mean, you'll be surprised. You can make a really nice article, but you want to make it as easy on an editor as possible. So first off, you read a book on how to write. I mean, seriously. And then how do you do it? Well, if you get some good story ideas and not something you've seen before. Oh, how's this? So back in the year 2000, I had mentioned that earlier. I'd also heard a term for the first time when it came to writing. It was called Taco Bell writing.
What does that mean? I've never heard that one before. What's that mean?
You never heard that one?
No.
Okay. So how do you make as much stuff out of the same 7 ingredients as you possibly can?
Now I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. So, a lot of these fast food restaurants literally have 7 ingredients, but they're going to make a blah blah out of it, or a this out of it, or a that out of it. And I'll tell you what, and that's what outdoor writing is. I mean, we've heard it all before. We understand, and obviously there's new stuff with technology and how to use a front-facing sonar or something like that. And even that's already old news. I mean, really. So now you got to get back to nitty gritty. It's like not just, let's say, how to catch steelhead out of a river, but okay, now you can break it down, the type of hooks. You can write an article on the hooks for steelhead fishing, or the sinkers for, or the line. I mean, you really have to break these things down. And again, that's what a lot of these fast food restaurants do, is they take the same thing and they just break it down and make a new taco out of it, and come up with some great ideas. If there's a publication out there you want to write for, you query them, meaning you're not going to write the whole article and then say, hey, here's an article, read it and see if you want it. Well, editors really don't have a lot of time for that anymore. Even the world of an editor has changed immensely. It's not just the writer, it's the editor too. So you query them with literally a paragraph, maybe a paragraph and a half about this great story idea you have, and you try and sell that story in a paragraph and a half. And they'll say, yeah, we haven't had something like that in a long time, or that's very different. What a great approach. Go for it. And then put it down on paper, and you write it, and then the next day you rewrite it, and then the next day you rewrite it. And that's a wonderful thing with, my first article in the mid-'90s, I wrote it on a legal pad, and I couldn't even type, and my wife typed it out, and I got it in. It was in our local Record Eagle newspaper here in the Traverse City area, and that was my very first article. And I hand wrote it, and my wife typed it for me, and then I took it down there, and long story short, it got published. But, now with the world of computers and all that stuff, you can write and you can rewrite and you can rewrite. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because that's why we have editors, right? But you want to make it as close to very good and proper as possible, so the editor can look at it and say, that's a great idea, and you wrote it well, and I didn't, the periods were in the right spot and the commas were in the right spot.
Well, and I appreciate that insight. And I always tell people it's not an easy job to get into. It's like outdoor television or outdoor radio. I mean, could you even start a career that way these days anymore? I don't know. But if somebody has the passion to do it, they have to try it. Because if they don't, they will spend their entire life thinking, what if? I should have done that. I should have tried it. So if you try it and put your heart and soul into it, and you're committed to it, at least you will say at the end of this journey, hey, I gave it my best shot.
Yeah. And I see that even in the fishing industry. So, they give me a microphone at the ultimate shows, and, I'm doing my thing. And here comes an up-and-coming, the kid's barely 19 years old or in the early 20s, and they are going to become a professional bass angler, right? They get, and blah, blah, blah. And, man, you want to talk about another tough business to get into.
Yeah.
And I look at them and go, God, oh, yeah. But at the same time, they're doing it. And they're going to be some of the next up-and-comers because they did not give up on it. And that doesn't mean they don't. That's all they do. I mean, they got side jobs. I mean, they may work at a fast food restaurant so that they can afford to do tournaments.
Yeah. When you look at the fishing scene in Michigan right now, the resources, the trends, what's going on? How would you rate our Michigan fisheries today?
The way I have for a long, long time is Michigan has the best all-around fishery in the United States. I'm blessed. I've got to fish from the Arctic Circle down to the middle of Mexico and all points in between. Sure, there may be some spectacular bite that happens in April on Lake such and such or the species of fish. But all around, there is no doubt in my mind that Michigan has the most diversified fishery probably in the world. And if you ask anybody that's been in the industry a while, they'll all agree. I mean, a lot of these people have been all over the world fishing and stuff like that. And like I say, there may be a specific thing that's outstanding, but a specific thing where our fishery is amazing. I mean, where else can you catch almost every species of fish that swims in the Midwest in one state?
And does that fishery carry over into wintertime? I mean, when you look at ice fishing, because the big water ice fishing, like Saginaw Bay and such, can be so squirrely. It's, you never know what the season's going to bring. The inland lake's a different story, but I guess you've always got the rivers open to steelhead and stuff. I mean, fishing is not a 3-season sport, is it?
No. Ice fishing around Michigan is outstanding. You can catch every species of fish that swims in the Midwest just about through the ice. And ice fishing takes a lot of work. Just getting my clothes on before I even leave the house it's like dressing for a moon mission. It just takes time, and it's a lot of work. But you can do it real basic. I mean, right now, I'm going to tell you this, and I saw it at the show, and they've been talking about the ice fishing industry is probably the number one selling for new products and the number one resource that anglers are buying new equipment for, new rods, this, that, sonar, doesn't matter, lures, you name it. But there's a reason, and it doesn't have to be as difficult as people make it out to be. I mean, ice fishing can be just as simple as a couple rods and a 5-gallon bucket and a inexpensive hand auger, and you can go out there and catch some bluegills and have a great few hours on the ice.
So what is the reason that ice fishery, pun intended, is so hot? Is it because there's nothing else going on right now?
Yeah, it is a tough time of year. I mean, obviously, we got steelhead in the rivers. I mean, some of my buddies right now in the local rivers here in the northwest lower Michigan, they're catching some really nice steelhead right now, because we've had this on and off, warm and cold, so there's been some fresh fish coming into the system. And those fish are hungry. I mean, they're there to eat. Sure, they're going to spawn maybe in April and May, but they get there early and they feed. And so you've got those open water fisheries. You can go to the shore of Lake Michigan right now, probably cast out a spawn bag or a crawler or something, and catch a steelhead or a salmon or a brown or something like that right off the shores of Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Superior. It doesn't matter. And so we have those opportunities. But ice fishing really opens it up to people that don't have boats. They can go to places they don't normally get to go during open water season.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to break it down to its basic form, you walk out there with a spud, a 5-gallon bucket, a tip up, and an ice rod, and you're good to go.
Yeah, you're good to go. I mean, I've caught thousands of fish doing that as a youngster, and it can be overwhelming thinking you need this, you need that. You can have a great time on the ice. Whether you're catching fish or not, you can have a great time on the ice, just ice fishing, and hopefully catch some fish.
Well, the fact that people, hunters and anglers, tend to think they need more gear and the fancy gear and the latest stuff, we have ourselves to blame for that. You and I, guys like you and I who talk about new products and stuff, but that's a whole different topic. Dave Rose, listen, I've enjoyed our conversation. Keep up the good work. I will look forward to seeing you at Outdoor Rama coming up here in about a month or so. So right back there at the Suburban Collection Showplace or whatever it's going to be called by then. But we'll see you then, Dave.
The 5 Credit Union Showplace.
Yeah, there. Okay. Dave Rose, longtime fixture in the outdoors here. You can find him on Facebook. Do a search for David A. Rose, David A. Rose. We're going to continue to talk about fishing after the break. Jeff Jolley, who is a fisheries biologist for the Michigan DNR. I want to talk about this new reef they've put into Saginaw Bay, and let's talk about probably the Saginaw Bay fishery and more coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister, 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Muskegon, WKBZ, 1090 AM, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT, 600 AM, 93.5 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins, Michigan-based family-owned VersaSkins. Why pay a bunch of money for different sets of hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set that is water resistant, wind resistant, warm, quality built, and all you have to do is snap on and zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern in less than a minute. It's genius. If you need big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, VersaSkins is for you as well. Check them out online at versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. Or go to amazon.com and do a search for VersaSkins. VersaSkins, just change your skin for the season you're in. And right now, we're basically, if you're looking at, say, Saginaw Bay, for example, ice fishing season or wannabe ice fishing season, I love Saginaw Bay. It's my home water. I spend much of the summer out there chasing walleye, trolling for walleye. Jeff Jolley is a guy who spends a lot of time thinking on and working on Saginaw Bay. He's the Southern Lake Huron Unit Manager for the Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, and with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jeff, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing good. Nice to hear from you again.
Yeah, nice to hear from you as well. So, I love Saginaw Bay. I love Saginaw Bay walleye. I love skinny water. I can't wait to get back out there this spring. When I get out there this spring, though, you guys put something out there that I haven't seen before. What is it?
That's right. We just, this fall, completed a new fish spawning reef. It's just to the east of the Channel Island, also known as Spoils Island, also known as the Shelter Island. That's where they put the dredge spoils, right at the mouth of the river. Just to the east of it, it's about 2.5 acres, about 20,000 tons of natural limestone down there. And the purpose is to recreate rocky reef habitat that used to be throughout the bay and over many, many years of mostly from land use activities upstream. Sedimentation buried all those reefs. So really important fish spawning habitat for species like walleye, whitefish, cisco, maybe species that like to spawn on rocky substrate.
So how far from the island is this? What depth of water is it in, Jeff?
It's pretty uniform in the inner bay there, 15, 20 feet deep generally. The reef comes up off the bottom and is at the lowest sort of water levels that we know of, will still be 6 to 8 feet underwater. So that was an important design consideration because we didn't want it to be a hazard that someone could hit with their boat. So it'll be submerged, but and when the bay's down a little bit, it'll be about 6 feet deep.
There is another natural reef out there northeast of where you put this other one, further offshore. How many years has that one been out there, and has that proven to be successful?
Yeah, in 2019 they finished the first reef. So it's not natural. It's a constructed reef. It's called Corian Reef.
Yeah.
It's a little farther out. The intent was to have an offshore and an inshore, and it just took us this long to sort of get the inshore one done. But yeah, the offshore one is pretty successful. We've done monitoring out there showing that fish are spawning on the reef. They've detected whitefish and walleye eggs. And I know that some anglers that go out there and fish it enjoy the fishing out there as well. It's a little farther out there. I'm predicting this inner one, Channel Island Reef, will get a lot more use just because it's so close and accessible to Bay City there.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, too. It's not that far from the mouth of the river. I mean, you put it at the DNR ramp right there, you can be out there on a good day in 5 minutes.
That's right.
So it's designed to encourage spawning for future generations of fish. But as you say, I would think anglers now, I mean, I'm going to hit that thing this spring when I'm out there. I'm going to see what's there. If there are fish spawning on there, I mean, that's an easy target.
That's right. And, the walleye population, as most of your listeners are aware, is very good in Saginaw Bay. It's a very abundant population. There's a lot of fish out there available for harvest. We're not too worried about, some folks will get nervous about increased pressure in one spot that could do some damage to the population. We have a really robust walleye population, so we're not worried about that. Other things, when you build structure like that, other fish can be attracted to it as well. I think of fish like smallmouth in particular. And so I'm really curious if some smallmouth will recruit to that reef, and that could be a popular destination for fishing.
Well, between the new reef and the man-made island, I mean, you've created a lot of structure. That could become a real nice honey hole right there.
Yeah, it might be. Even things like, yellow perch. I know this fall, we know the perch numbers are down, and the fishing is not like it used to be for yellow perch, mostly to walleye, the abundant walleye population eating those small perch and not letting them survive. But, you can still have good fishing days out there for perch. And I know this fall there were quite a few fishermen in between the island, and the reef was under construction, so they couldn't quite get out there. But they were doing real good because there was a couple of really nice flat days out there.
Hang tight, Jeff. We're talking to Jeff Jolley, a Michigan DNR fisheries biologist. Got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. I'm anxious to check out that reef this spring. But when we come back, I want to keep Jeff around for the Ask Avery segment. People are talking about the Saginaw Bay, perch fishery, walleye fishery, Cisco's. How is that resource doing? Jeff is the guy to answer that question after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. And you can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM 99.7 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoors men and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. Now, the Ask Avery segment is usually people emailing me questions to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's going to be something you want me to answer directly or something you want me to pass along to, say, somebody in the DNR that I might have access to that you don't. But this week is a little bit different. This is Avery asking the question to Jeff Jolley, a DNR fisheries biologist. We're talking about Saginaw Bay, the Saginaw Bay fishery. This is a fishery that I have... I'm going to say I have intimate knowledge of just because I've spent so many years out there and I've covered it so closely. Walleye are native to Saginaw Bay, and then overharvesting and pollution, overharvesting by commercial anglers and pollution, wiped out the fishery. And then the DNR with conservation fishing groups around the state, around the bay, started the stocking program. They brought the fishery back. These days, the walleye fishery is so successful, we don't even have any stocking programs. It's all natural reproduction. But what has that walleye population, that booming walleye population, done to other species like perch? Perch anglers don't like walleye necessarily. Jeff, it's an interesting question. You've got like a 3D chess game going out there on Saginaw Bay, and you got to keep a lot of people happy and try to balance a lot of different fisheries. How's it going?
Yeah, you gave a nice sort of overview of how we got here, too. In most ways, I think right now Saginaw Bay is punching above its weight when it comes to fisheries. Like you said, walleye and a bunch of other species are doing well. But yes, so it's kind of the dark side of this abundant walleye population, which everybody likes and is a really good thing. It's super exciting. Walleye eat perch, and it's really that survival in that juvenile stage that really has taken a hit. All of our, surveys show perch reproduction and hatching is as good as it ever was. It's just that they can't make it to that adult size. And that's a really hard problem to solve, as folks think we have all the power in the world, and actually we have just a couple things that we can do management-wise to help that population. And one of the things that we've done is, several years ago, increase the bag limit for walleye from 5 to 8 and drop down that minimum size to 13 inches. That's pretty liberal. You won't find that in many places.
And are you comfortable with that limit? You certainly haven't seen us as recreational anglers take too many walleye. Are you going to stick with that those creel limits and size limits for a while?
Yeah, so far our data shows that the walleye population can sustain that just fine. It keeps pumping out good, strong year classes. So until we see something, some numbers drop or some sort of growth problem, meaning there might be too many fish for the food source, that would be something to think about. A couple other points I think about. This population is still showing us where it's going to land, the walleye population. when it gets there, typically, you see this in Lake Erie now, it'll stabilize, and you'll see some strong year classes and then maybe some weak year classes. You'll see some fluctuation up and down, and we're hoping and just waiting to see when that happens in those years with a weak walleye year class might allow that perch population to get through and then throw out some good strong year classes. That's typically what you see in a stable fishery. This one's still growing. So that's the challenge. And the other big challenge here is people often talk about, I want it to be like it used to be. The nature of Saginaw Bay and Lake Huron itself is not the same as it used to be because of invasive species, mussels, the crash of alewives. So the conditions aren't the same, and the food source, now that alewives are gone, leaves only just mainly perch for walleye to eat. What we're hoping to do is restore the cisco population, which used to be very abundant, and that would be a different food source. The idea being the more things you give walleye to eat, the more perch that might survive.
Well, and you talk about, anglers wanting it the way it used to be. There's no doubt that the size of walleye we catch on Saginaw Bay today is significantly smaller than it was back in the early 90s.
Yeah, yep, and we see that as well. I'm thinking, my hunch is that we should see some of those bigger fish start developing. That takes, these fish take a while to get that old. And we should be seeing more and more of them because we're still, like I said, this is a rebuilding population. But yeah, you're right. The size, in the spring when we do our sampling as well, we're not seeing those really big ones that used to be out there.
Well, regardless, though, you and conservation groups around the bay have created a world-class walleye fishery there. I can't wait to get out and check that reef out this spring and see exactly what it's going to bring. I think it's going to be pretty exciting. Jeff, I appreciate your time, Jeff Jolley. And I look forward to talking with you again about the Saginaw Bay fishery.
Okay, my pleasure. Thanks very much.
All right, Jeff Jolley of the Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in hour number 3, we're going to switch gears completely. We're going to talk to Chris Kreiner about predator hunting, about documenting those predator hunts. Sharing them on social media, online. And then we'll wrap it all up, as we always do, with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. Ken has been doing the introduction of this show forever. I'm trying to think if anybody ever did it before Ken did. I don't think so. Anyway, welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. Indeed, my name is Mike Avery, and this is something I've been doing for a long time. I have a real passion for the outdoors. I don't pretend to be an expert. I am a passionate participant and a longtime observer of the outdoor scene here in Michigan. And that scene has evolved over the years. For example, in the previous hour, at the end of the previous hour, I was talking with Jeff Jolley, DNR Fisheries biologist, about the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery. That is a fishery that has evolved over the years. You talk to people who grew up on the bay, and years ago there really wasn't a fishery. If you go back to the 40s, there was. But then pollution and over-harvesting by commercial fishermen wiped that resource out, And it was conservation groups around the bay in cooperation with the DNR that brought that resource back. You look at the way other things have evolved. When I was a kid growing up on the west side of the state, I hunted pheasants. And there were so many pheasants that I could go out by myself as a kid with a dog. We had English setters, and put up, multiple birds and eventually knock down a couple of birds. But there were a lot of birds around. There weren't turkeys, though. There weren't turkeys. These days, there are turkeys all over the place. You know what else we didn't see much of when I was a kid? At least I don't remember seeing. Predators. There were some fox around. No bobcats where I was growing up. And boy, very darn few coyotes. I don't remember ever seeing or hearing a coyote. These days, coyotes all over the place. If you're out deer hunting in the evening, you're going to hear coyotes. And that has created a wonderful, especially wintertime, outdoor activity, pastime of hunting coyotes. This is not something that I do, but I am fascinated by it, and I have much respect for the people who do, including Chris Kreiner. You can learn more about Chris on his website, ckreinermedia.com. But let's take a few minutes to talk with him now on the Outdoor Magazine radio show. Chris, welcome back. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Always a pleasure to talk with you. I find you to be a very interesting person with has a lot of passion for what you're doing, and I appreciate passion.
Absolutely. And we're in our favorite time of the year, right? We're the predator caller's dream season, I guess. You got fox season, coyote season, and bobcat season right now.
Are those three completely different activities? Do you approach them from different perspectives, or is it basically you do it the same way and you never know what's going to show up?
I do have a different, if I'm going to call fox, I've got a different type of sequence that I would use versus if I was calling coyotes. And then same with bobcat. Bobcat, you can only hunt during the daytime hours. You cannot hunt them at night. And I do run a different sequence for bobcat.
Can you hunt fox at night?
You can hunt fox at night, yes. And you got your red fox and gray fox. I typically stick with a prey distress when I'm going after fox in particular, because there are some people that have fox issues. They get into the chicken coops, and I've known some people that lost their entire chicken flock due to fox.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You get after them with some prey distress, and usually can call them in.
I don't know if I've ever seen a gray fox. A lot of red fox, but I don't know about gray fox. Are they common?
Gray fox are not as common. I've called in the 9 years that I've been nighttime predator calling. I have only called in 4 gray fox total. So it's not a very common animal.
Do they live in the same type of habitat as a red fox?
They typically prefer the thicker cover. The areas that I have called them in are typically creek bottoms, swamp areas. And however, the funny thing about gray fox is they are a very aggressive animal. They come in very aggressively to the call if they are in the area. Red fox, on the other hand, they are very common. They're all over the place, and they can come into the call pretty quickly, but not near as quickly and aggressively as a gray fox would.
And then you talk about a bobcat, which, of course, you say you cannot hunt at night. But a bobcat, I mean, think about this. A coyote's like a dog, and a bobcat is a cat. 2 completely different critters, and they act completely differently, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. A cat, if you watch, you can learn a little bit of behavior just by watching your domesticated cats, because the way they stalk up on, a mouse or prey, they come in very quietly. They're much more meticulous with their movement, and they are dead silent. So you will never hear a bobcat coming.
And I feel like, and I only get this perception from talking with guys like you're going to find the bobcats in the thickest and gnarliest swamp bottoms around.
Yes, the areas where I typically find them are on the swamp edges, and it's this time of year. I like when things freeze over, because the cats will cross the swamp if it's generally a wet swamp. But they definitely like the thicker cover, and they like being away from people. They are a much more to themselves animal, and it seems like the further away I get from civilization, the more bobcats I find.
I do feel like the bobcat population is growing. I mean, that's just anecdotal, but maybe it's the geographic range that is expanding that I'm seeing. What do you see, Chris?
Yes. So I believe it was last year maybe it was 2 years ago, the DNR opened up. They moved the units further south to incorporate some of the middle part of the state, Clinton County, Ionia County, and move north. And that's because the bobcat range has expanded to the point where we're seeing more bobcat in these counties. My brother-in-law, he filmed a bobcat in Ionia County here this fall for a half an hour. It was chasing squirrels around. He had a great time watching that animal because it's not something you see that frequently down here. And to be honest, that was the first one he had ever seen in his life. So it was a pretty special moment.
Well, and you compare that to coyotes who are all over. I mean, every county in the state has coyotes now.
Yes, yeah, the coyotes are everywhere. I mean, as you've mentioned, there's, if you're out there deer hunting, there's a good chance you're going to see coyotes, and even better chance you're going to at least hear them in the evening hours.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question here, and this is going to come across as rude, but I'm not meaning it to be. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Most people don't eat coyotes, so why do you hunt them, Chris?
So coyotes can be very, I guess their predation on your deer herd and everything, your livestock. I hunt them primarily for that reason, keep the population in check. And obviously the deer herd in the southern part of the state is pretty large. So the coyotes aren't necessarily, I guess, taking out so many deer that it's an issue. However, the coyotes don't discriminate either. They're going to eat your buck fawns, your doe fawns. We're all about trying to create a larger buck population, and so I do it because of just keeping the animals in check, because they all have to be in check.
Well, it's population control. It's predator control.
Correct.
If I remember right, I think it was you I was talking to that once you started predator hunting, that became your passion more than deer hunting?
It did. Yes. Predator hunting is a completely different sport. And I guess you could almost say I almost incorporate it similar to waterfowl hunting. You can get out with your buddies. I mean, you don't have to be so motionless and quiet because you're out there in the dark. I mean, yes, you want to be quiet, but you can whisper to your buddies. You can carry on a conversation during a coyote stand while you're looking for coyotes to come into the call. So it's a little more camaraderie with your friends and even family members, getting them out into the field and just having a good time.
I want to talk more about this, the concept of nighttime predator hunting, because when that became allowed, when centerfire rifles after dark opened up, that changed everything, didn't it?
It did. Well, I mean, myself, with me having a young family, the nighttime was a good time for me to, put the kids to bed, and then I can have a couple, 3 hours of my own free time and go out after predators. It was harder for me to do that during the daytime hours. So it opened that door for me. And then the being able to use the centerfire rifles and use the cover of darkness to be able to move in closer to the areas without them expecting you to come from that direction. Excellent.
We'll talk more about that, Chris. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Chris Kreiner. You can find more about Chris on his website, ckreinermedia.com. Kreiner's Kreiner, ckreinermedia.com. When we come back, more of the finer details, the finer points of predator hunting. Plus, I want to talk to Chris about how he documents these hunts. He's very good at this. When you see a picture that Chris has taken, you know it's a Chris Kreiner picture. We'll talk more about that. And then, of course, later on in the hour, we'll wrap up the entire show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. That's all coming up yet this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on WKNW. That's 1400 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Truck Trolley. You've heard me talk about Truck Trolley. I think this is a very innovative and ingenious piece of gear. It goes in the back of your truck, but it's not bolted in, it's not screwed in, it's held in with straps. So it's not permanent, meaning if you need access to your complete bed, if you're hauling sand or gravel or something like that, and you don't want the truck trolley in the way, you just take it out. But then you put it back in, you strap it back in, and what it does is it slides out. It's a tray. It's a hard plastic tray that slides out, so you can have access to your entire truck bed. No longer do I have to use an old man hook where I lean across the tailgate and reach up into the front of the bed with my old man hook and pull it out. No, I don't care if it's slid forward or not. I just grab the truck trolley, I slide it out, and I'm good to go. The website, trucktrolley.com. That's trucktrolley.com. A Michigan-based, family-owned company, and you know I love that. You know what else I love? I love the fact that here in Michigan we have so many outdoor recreational opportunities, and they change from season to season. And right now, a lot of people across our state are predator hunting, they're coyote hunting, they're fox hunting, they're bobcat hunting. Chris Kreiner is a guy who is a hardcore predator hunter. Check out his website, ckreinermedia.com. He's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. So, Chris, do you hunt at all for predators during the daytime anymore?
Minus the bobcats, I really don't spend a lot of time out during the daytime hours. Bobcat hunting, I start first light and I'll hunt all day long because I usually travel north and find some better areas to hunt up there. But my daytime hunting for coyotes and fox is pretty minimal.
So when you go out after dark, what is that experience like? I mean, obviously, just being out there after dark creates its whole environment. You don't have the visibility as far as getting your gear around and stuff. But when you go out there and set up, it's got to be pretty cool. Maybe when you first start, maybe even a little bit eerie.
When you first get into the coyote scene and you're out there at night, especially if you're out there by yourself, and you got a group of coyotes howling, and they're only a couple 100 yards away, 300 yards away in the hardwoods, and you get that hair raising on the back of your neck, like, I'm not sure if I should be here, type scenario. But the more you get used to that, and the more you enjoy that sound, and you listen to the way their sound is resonating, and are they challenging you, are they just letting you know they're in the area, you learn to understand what their vocalizations mean.
So you can learn based on the sound of their calls as to what you might expect or what they might be doing.
Right. Yeah. You can tell if they're upset about they might be challenging you, and they're upset about the fact that you're pushing in on their territory. You might find that they're excited and they're just vocalizing back, letting you know that they're there. So there's in how they respond, you can sometimes respond with a similar fashion to bring their curiosity and bring them out into the field with you. I typically try to set up 200 to 400 yards away from the woodlot where I expect there may be some coyotes to be. And that way then I'm bringing them out into the open.
Do you use a decoy at all after dark?
I do not. So when I'm nighttime hunting, you will experience this too. If you're out there, you will call in owls, surprisingly enough. If you're using prey distress, rabbit distress, those owls become curious and they'll come in. And thankfully, I've not had to learn this from experience, but I've heard plenty of stories where the owls will come in, grab the decoy, and take off. So they carry off your decoy.
And what are you using? All right, what's your gear look like? Number one, what caliber are you hunting with now?
So this year I've been running the 6mm Creedmoor, which is relatively new to the predator scene. I would say the last 2 to 3 years. And I've run 243, 22, 250, 223, 6.5 Creedmoor, 6mm arc. There's so many choices for the predator hunter, and I can't say that I've really had a bad experience with much of any of them. Bullet selection becomes I would say, one of your more important choices, is making sure you got a bullet that is, when it hits the animal, it has good rapid expansion, and it's putting all of that ammo's energy into that animal, and it's putting it down quickly.
You're limited after dark. It's smaller than 270, right? 270 and up you cannot use.
Correct. The bullet diameter maximum is .269 and under. So, for example, your 6.5 Creedmoor, if you were to measure that bullet's diameter, it is .264 inches. So that's about the biggest thing that you have to be knowledgeable about and understand. When
folks first started hunting predators after dark here in Michigan, I'm going back a few years, it was lights. You were using, and this sounds so old-fashioned now, you had to light them up with a light, maybe a red light, maybe a green light. Boy, things have changed, haven't they?
Oh goodness, the technology and just in general to those that are out there targeting coyotes and at night, there's a few that still try to do the low budget, using lights, because that is the most cost effective. You can under a couple $100 you can get set up and going. But then, the night vision thing became kind of the craze, and, guys got into the whole night vision thing. But now a lot of guys are really jumping into the thermal game, because the thermal technology has actually come down in price so much that it's become affordable for most.
I have looked through a buddy's thermal scope after dark, and it is amazing what you can see with those things. The amount of wildlife and life after dark that you can watch, let alone the coyotes or the fox, is fascinating in itself.
It blows your mind. You can drive down these roads, and when the sun is setting and you see 20 or 30 deer out there, that's one thing. But when the lights go out completely and it is completely dark, that 20 or 30 deer can sometimes grow to 60 to 70 deer after dark. It is amazing to watch these fields just fill up.
I'm on your website right now, ckreinermedia.com, and I noticed two distinct buttons, pages, home and hunting. Mm-hmm. And on your hunting, and this is a comment on what the world is today. On your hunting, you say hunting/viewer discretion. This page was reserved for those who live for the hunt and the bounties that come with it. As a professional photographer, it is important to respect these amazing animals and bring out the beauty and excitement of the harvest. And you certainly do excel at that, Kris. Tell me, and I don't know if it's a secret but when I look at your photos, after dark photos of predator hunting, they're beautiful. They're spectacular. How do you do it?
It's been a lot of years of trial and error, and I quickly learned that it all came down to lighting. When I first started the nighttime photographer, I was using a flashlight and creating what is called light painting, where you just create a scene, you do a long exposure photography, which is your shutter on the camera stays open for 15 to 20 seconds, and then you use a flashlight to capture what the scene looks like. And now it's evolved into, now I carry a couple of strobe lights or flashes out in the field with me, so I can control that lighting a little with a finer detail, and it's really created some really neat scenes.
Oh, the images I'm looking at right now they're breathtaking, and the thing that kind of jumps out at me is most of these do not include the hunter in the picture.
Yeah, I like capturing the equipment used and the animal more so than, when I go out with my buddies, I take pictures of my buddies, but hey, let's face it, people have seen enough of me. They like seeing what I'm using in the field and what the animal is and stuff along those lines. So I do include some people, but for the most part, yeah, I do try to just capture just the animal.
Well, and you talk about the gear, the business that has evolved and grown around predator hunting is pretty impressive. I mean, it's still probably a small part of the overall hunting industry, but it sure has grown.
It has. You've got, the thermal market has almost got too many companies jumping into the thermal market because they're finding people that will buy their gear. I've been using, for example, Pulsar thermal equipment for going on 7 years now, and their equipment's always worked phenomenal for me, so I've got no reason to change.
I would think, too, out there after dark, that a suppressor is an important part of your gear because, though people, if you're on people's land, they know you're out there, but they don't necessarily want to hear you shooting.
Yes, and the neighbors don't want to hear you shooting either. The report is pretty loud if you're not using a suppressor. So initially when I got going, occasionally I would have law enforcement show up because we shot at a coyote, or I'd have neighbors show up at my vehicle because they're wondering what's going on. And now that I'm running suppressed, I do not have any calls. I might get a call or have law enforcement show up because somebody called in the fact that my vehicle's parked off the side of the road. And it's just weird to that area, for example. So occasionally I still get a visit from local law enforcement, but more often than not, they're super excited about the gear that you're using, and they'll ask questions, they look through your gear. So it always ends up being a very respectful conversation and interaction. But it's occasionally it can happen.
And I feel like predator hunters in general, as a group, you folks are very pro PR oriented. You want to share what you're doing. You want people to know what it is that you're doing out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially our local law enforcement, they've got a hard enough job as it is, so if I am in the middle of a coyote stand, I do have like the local dispatch in my cell phone. So if I have to have a quick call, like because they're at my vehicle or something like that, but I'm in the middle of a coyote stand, I can call dispatch while I'm in the middle of the coyote stand and just ask if the officer needs to speak with me. It's a very easy way to do that.
Chris Kreiner, it's always a pleasure. I appreciate your work. I will keep an eye on your website, ckrainermedia.com. Good luck to you. Have a great season, and you and I will talk again soon.
Sounds great, Mike. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, a few more things to cover, and then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar. That's right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. You can hear us in Manistee. Oh, look at this, Manistee and Manistique. In Manistique, WTIQ 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. I had this discussion earlier. For these 3 hours, I call this little corner of the building the Outdoor Magazine studio. Now, the rest of the week, Jonathan Dent, this is his studio. It's the FM studio, but it's John's production studio. This has been a bone of contention. And I don't blame John. It's like he works in here all week long, and then on Wednesdays, Avery comes in the morning and just disrupts everything for like 4 hours by the time I get out of here. So, Jonathan, I apologize. I'm sorry, not sorry. John tried to get me to move into a studio down the hall. It's basically a podcast studio. And I didn't go. And now I'm not going. So anyway, listen, I am so blessed to work with the guys here. Jonathan Dent is a young guy. He's a really, really sharp guy. He's very into radio, broadcasting, audio production. And then I also work with Charlie Rood, who is a veteran in the broadcast industry. And the guy is like the hardest working, most sincere guy you'll ever run into. And the fact that I get to work with these guys every week and they help me to make this show the best it can be, I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it because I do take this seriously. I would never intentionally walk into the studio and put together a show that was anything less than the best that I could do. Now, having said that, is every show as good as I'd like them to be? Of course not. There are weeks when I come in here and I'm just off. I'm not feeling good, or I don't have the clarity, I don't have the vision that I'd like to on a good week, and my questions might not be as good, my comments might not be as good. My guests are always good. It's up to me to get the best out of these guests that I possibly can. And some weeks I don't do as good a job as I can, but it's not the guest's fault. It's my fault. But it is my goal to walk in here and do the best job, the best show that I absolutely can every week. And because I've been around for a while and I know a lot of people, and to use an old term, my Rolodex, now my contact list, is pretty full. You know, I know how to reach people and I know how to get in touch with people pretty much regardless of the topic that comes up. And people say, well, how do you decide what topics are going to be on each week's show? That is pretty much a function of where we are in the year. The shows, the topics, the guests will follow the seasons. And here in Michigan, we have some fairly distinct seasons. Now, there are certain things that will, they'll cover, like fishing, okay? Here in Michigan, we fish 4 seasons a year, 12 months a year. But that fishing takes different forms. In the wintertime, much of that fishing is ice fishing or river fishing for steelhead, where in the summertime, much of that fishing might be trolling for salmon or trout or walleye. In the springtime, much of that fishing is going to be jigging for walleye in the river. So, I let the seasons, I let Mother Nature, I let what you're doing. That's a better way of putting it. I let what you are doing in the outdoors kind of dictate, mandate what we're going to talk about here on the show. So it's not hard to fill a 3-hour show. When I first started doing this, originally, like years ago, it was a 1-hour show on a local AM station. When the show expanded to the first statewide iteration on a different network, it was a 2-hour show. And I thought, how am I going to fill a 2-hour show? It wasn't a problem. When I made a jump over to another network, and the guy that called me over, and the timing was good. I didn't abandon anybody. I didn't leave anybody. I didn't just jump ship. I wasn't like, can I say it? I wasn't like the college NIL football players in the portal and how they jump from school to school now. No, I wasn't like that. Oh, did I say that? Anyway, the show became a 3-hour show, and I thought, how am I going to fill 3 hours? Again, it's not a problem. When you look at, say, the podcast these days, those podcasts, they'll sit there and talk for a good hour, hour and a half, 2 hours on one topic. If you're talking about something you are passionate about, if you're talking about something you enjoy the conversation, and it's easy to just talk, because that's what this show is. It's me talking to people who have a passion for the outdoors as well. That's where it's different from my live streams. In my live streams, my Wednesday night lives every Wednesday night at 7, and my behind the mic segments from the studio every Wednesday morning at 8:45, you have a chance to get involved. You can come in online, watch it, ask questions, and we can go back and forth. And I love that. I love that a lot. The website, by the way, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Let me know what's on your mind. Send me your pictures. Send me your videos. I'd love to see them. Love to share them on my social media outlets. We're all in this together, so why not celebrate? Celebrate this outdoor lifestyle. Celebrate our individual outdoor adventures and more. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. As we are in the studio right now recording this week's show, it's almost noon. It's lunchtime. And I find myself getting hungry. And then when I got a little birdie told me what recipe Dave might do for us this week, I got really excited because I know this recipe. And the cool thing about it is we have video of this recipe that I will put online this weekend, but we can't do it without the man himself, wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar. David, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well, Mike. Yourself? Enjoying the cold, are you?
No. I'll be honest with you. The older I get, the more of a sissy I am. I don't enjoy it anymore, but I realize that I'm being foolish because we live here in a state that has wintertime, so I should embrace it and I should make the most of it.
Yeah, you start going ice fishing.
That ain't going to happen, but I should. If I was going ice fishing, one of the fish I would target is a fish that I think you're cooking for us this week, Dave.
Yeah, we have walleye with blueberries. This was the second bestseller at the restaurant for years and years.
Let's hear it.
Well, it's the walleye with blueberries, and it's for 4 portions. So you need about 8 to 10 ounces of boneless, skinless fillet per person, 2 beaten up eggs very well, a couple ounces of blueberry schnapps, and a 12-ounce jar of chicken gravy, 2 ounces of heavy cream, 2 tablespoons of fresh blueberries or frozen. You could use either one. And you need a squeeze of lime and flour and oil to sauce with. So you're going to dredge the fish and flour, then in the beaten up, and in a hot saute pan with a small amount of oil. Brown the fish on both sides. And you want to leave the rib side facing the diner. Remove the fillets to a large oven-proof baking dish and wipe the pan out with a paper towel. And then you want to saute the onions for a minute or two just to break the flavor loose. You don't want to cook them too much because you're going to bake this. So remove the pan from the stove and then flambe with the schnapps because the schnapps is full of sugar and it'll really go up pretty good. So when the flames die down, return it to the burner, add the onions, what he did, and then gravy, pepper, cream, garlic butter. And we want to reduce that down fast by about, maybe between a quarter and a half of the volume. So you want to thicken that right up. And then spoon or pour the mixture over the fish and bake uncovered for about, 8 to 10 minutes because the fish is started to cook already, so you don't need to bake all that long at 350 degrees. And then you want to arrange the blueberries around the pan with the fish and return to the oven for 3 to 5 minutes because you don't want to overcook these blueberries because then they'll mush up and it'll just go incorporated into the sauce. And so you want to serve it. And like I said, you want to make sure that the rib side is facing the diner. And you can actually put a few blueberries around each of the dishes that you're going to serve, and it would make it look really nice. And if you have a little bit of parsley, you could put a little parsley on top of it. Serve with your favorite steamed vegetables or some boiled potatoes. Man, it's like I said, this was one of the hits of the restaurant for years and years. We sold tons of this.
And I remember this. And one point I think you've brought up to me over and over again is that a fish, especially like a walleye, will continue to cook even after it's off the heat, right?
Right. The fillets are actually quite thin, and so maybe it's about 3/4 cooked, and by the time it's a couple of minutes, it should cook all the way through almost. So you don't really have to bake this very long. You just want to incorporate all the sauce together.
Dave, we got a bad connection today, and I'm having a hard time following you, but I do want to let you know and let our friends listening know that this recipe, the pan-fried walleye with blueberries, is one that I do have video of. So I will put this on my Facebook page and my Instagram feed, and I will put it out on YouTube as well so people can see you cooking this as they listen to the show, and I'll also put the recipe out there as well. So, David, keep up the good work, and I will look forward to talking to you next time. And I'll remind folks you cook at the King's Dish in Standish every week, and you and I will talk again next week.
All righty. Thanks a lot, Mike. Have a great week.
You as well. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. And I got to tell you, just an all-around good guy. Many of you know Dave because over the years he's been around. You've been to the restaurants. You've been at an event that Dave has catered, and so you've talked to him in person. But as nice a guy as he sounds on the air, he's even nicer in person. So he's just been a pleasure to work with, and it's a pleasure to sit at this microphone every week as well to again talk about the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan. We talk about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping, wildlife issues, conservation issues. We wrap up each week's show with some wild game cooking. The website, my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I would love to hear from you. Let me know what's on your mind. If you've got something you'd like to hear us talk about, that I don't, that you haven't heard, send me an email. Let me know, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. If there's something you're sick of hearing about, let me know as well. I can't guarantee that I won't talk about it, but I do want to know what's on your mind. Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com.